Rain hammered the clinic window like bullets against armor. Dr. Celine Mercer stood frozen, her hand wrapped around a scalpel she didn't remember grabbing, while a billionaire mafia boss named Damian Volkov stared down the barrel of her patient's husband's gun. Blood dripped from Ivy Holloway's split lip onto the sterile floor. Preston's finger tightened on the trigger. And in the half second before everything exploded, Celine understood something terrifying. The most dangerous man in Chicago wasn't the one holding the weapon. It was the one who didn't need to. If you want to see how a woman who saves lives survives falling for a man who ends them, stay with me until the very end. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. But precis. The first time Celine Mercer saw a man die, she was 7 years old. Her father collapsed in the kitchen while scrambling eggs, clutching his chest, gasping for air that wouldn't come. She remembered the yellowish morning light streaming through the curtains, the smell of burnt butter, her mother screaming into the phone, the way her father's eyes went somewhere else while Celine stood there holding a plastic cup of orange juice, watching the only hero she'd ever known disappear in front of her. 23 years later, she still couldn't eat eggs. But she could save people. That's what she told herself every morning when she unlocked the doors to the Mercy Street Clinic, a cramped medical office wedged between a pawn shop and a laundromat in one of Chicago's forgotten neighborhoods. The building smelled like disinfectant and broken promises. The fluorescent lights buzzed like dying insects. Half her patients paid in cash. The other half didn't pay at all. Celine didn't care. She'd gone to medical school on scholarships and student loans she'd be repaying until she was 50. She'd turned down residencies at Northwestern and Rush University to open a clinic that lost money every month. Her mother called it self-destruction disguised as altruism. Her ex-boyfriend called it a martyr complex. Celine called it breathing. Because every time she stitched up a knife wound, every time she talked a teenager out of an overdose, every time she looked into eyes that had forgotten hope, she wasn't 7 years old anymore, standing helpless in a kitchen filled with morning light. She was doing something. Tonight, though, felt different. The rain started around 6, turning the streets into rivers of trash and regret. Celine's last scheduled patient canceled. Her receptionist, Maria, left early to pick up her kid from daycare. The clinic was supposed to close at 8. At 7:45, someone knocked. Celine almost didn't answer. She was exhausted. Her lower back ached from hunching over exam tables all day. She'd eaten nothing but stale coffee and half a protein bar since noon. She had a stack of billing paperwork on her desk that made her want to set the building on fire. But the knocking didn't stop. It was frantic, desperate. Celine opened the door. A woman stood shivering in the rain, soaked to the bone, mascara running down her cheeks in black rivers. Mid-20s, maybe. Designer clothes that had probably cost more than Celine's rent. A silk blouse now transparent and clinging to her frame, blood seeping through the fabric near her ribs. "Please," the woman whispered. "I didn't know where else to go." Celine pulled her inside. The woman's name was Ivy Holloway. She sat on the exam table trembling like a wounded animal while Celine peeled away the ruined blouse, revealing a landscape of bruises across her torso, purple and yellow and greenish black, layered like sediment, some fresh, others weeks old. Celine had seen this before, too many times. "Ivy," she said quietly, pulling on latex gloves. "Who did this to you?" "I fell. Nobody falls like this. I'm clumsy. Look at me." Ivy's eyes were swollen, bloodshot, terrified. She looked like she'd been crying for days, or years. "I fell down the stairs," Ivy whispered. It was the worst lie Celine had ever heard. She cleaned the wounds in silence, her jaw tight, her hands steady despite the rage building in her chest. A cracked rib, deep tissue bruising, a laceration above Ivy's left eyebrow that needed stitches, defensive wounds on her forearms. "Ivy, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Are you in danger right now?" Ivy's lip trembled. "No." "Is someone going to come looking for you?" "No." "If you need help—" "I don't," Ivy said, her voice breaking. I just need you to fix this so it doesn't show. Please. My husband, he's a good man. He works so hard. I make him angry sometimes. It's my fault. The clinic door slammed open. Celine spun around, instinctively stepping in front of Ivy. A man stormed inside, rain dripping from his tailored suit jacket, fury radiating off him like heat from asphalt in summer. Tall, broad-shouldered, expensive haircut, the kind of man who'd never been told no in his entire life. Preston Holloway, Ivy's husband. Celine knew it before he opened his mouth. "There you are," Preston snarled, his voice slurred at the edges. "Drunk, or high, or both." "Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is? Running off like some kind of—" "Sir, you need to leave," Celine said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding her veins. "This is a medical facility. My patient—" "Your patient is my wife." "That doesn't give you the right to—" "She's coming with me. Now." Preston took a step forward. Celine didn't move. She was 5'6". Preston was easily 6'2". He outweighed her by at least 80 pounds. Behind her, Ivy whimpered like a kicked dog. "You're not taking her anywhere," Celine said. Preston's face twisted into something ugly. "You think you can stop me?" He raised his fist. That's when the second man walked in. Celine didn't hear the door open. Didn't hear footsteps. One moment the space behind Preston was empty. The next, someone was standing there, still as death, rain dripping from the shoulders of a black suit that probably cost more than Celine's car. Damien Volkov. Celine didn't know his name yet, but she knew what he was. Every city has men like this. Men who don't need to raise their voices to be heard. Men who walk into rooms and change the air pressure. Men whose reputation arrives 10 minutes before they do. Chicago called him a billionaire philanthropist. The streets called him something else. "Put your hand down," Damien said quietly. His voice was smooth, almost polite, but underneath there was something cold and final, like the sound of a gun being cocked in the dark. Preston froze. He didn't turn around, didn't lower his fist, but every muscle in his body locked up like prey that just realized the wolf is standing behind it. "I said put it down." Preston's arm dropped to his side. Slowly, he turned. Whatever he saw in Damien's face made all the drunken bravado evaporate. His face went pale. His Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed hard. "Mr. Volkov," Preston stammered. I wasn't, this is just a misunderstanding. My wife, she gets confused sometimes, and—" "Your wife," Damien interrupted, his gray eyes flicking briefly to Ivy cowering on the exam table, then back to Preston. "Looks like someone used her for target practice." "She fell." "No, she didn't. This is between me and her. It's private, domestic. You don't—" Damien took one step forward. Preston stumbled backward like he'd been shoved. "You have 10 seconds to leave this building," Damien said. "If I see you near this clinic again, if I hear you've gone anywhere near your wife, if you so much as breathe in her direction, I'll make sure the only thing you're capable of hitting is the bottom of the Chicago River." Preston's mouth opened and closed like a fish drowning in air. "Do we understand each other?" "Yes," Preston whispered. "Good. Leave." Preston practically ran out the door. The silence that followed was deafening. Celine stood there, her heart slamming against her ribs, her hands still clenched into fists she didn't remember making. Behind her, Ivy was crying softly into her hands. Damien turned his attention to Celine. Up close, he was even more unsettling. Not because he was handsome, though he was, in a cold, carved-from-marble kind of way. Sharp jawline, gray eyes like winter fog, dark hair slicked back from a face that gave away nothing. But it was the stillness that got her. Most people fidget, shift their weight, blink too much. Damien Volkov stood like a statue, his hands folded in front of him, watching her with the kind of focus that made her feel like an insect under a microscope. "Are you all right?" he asked. "I'm fine." "You don't look fine." "I didn't ask for your opinion." Something flickered across his face, amusement maybe, or surprise. It vanished too quickly to tell. "Fair enough," he said. "Is she going to survive?" "She'll heal, physically. And the rest?" Celine's jaw tightened. "That's not something you fix with a bandage." Damien nodded slowly, like she'd just confirmed something he already knew. "Preston Holloway owes money to some very unpleasant people," he said. "Eastern European, trafficking networks. They don't care about marriage vows. If he can't pay, they'll take her as collateral." Celine's blood went cold. What? Your patient. She's in more danger than she realizes. How do you... I make it my business to know things, Dr. Mercer. The fact that he knew her name without asking sent a chill down her spine. Who the hell are you? Someone who can help. I didn't ask for your help. No, Damien agreed, but she did. He nodded toward Ivy, who was staring at him with wide, desperate eyes. Is it true? Ivy whispered. Preston owes money to those people? Damien hesitated for half a second, the first crack Celine had seen in his perfect control. Yes. Oh my God. Oh my God. He told me it was a business loan. He said, he lied, Damien said flatly. And now you're in danger, both of you. Celine felt the room tilt slightly. Wait, both of us? You just became a liability. Preston knows you've seen his wife. He knows she told you things. Men like him don't leave witnesses. I didn't. It doesn't matter what you did or didn't do. It matters what he thinks you did. Celine wanted to argue, wanted to tell him he was being paranoid, wanted to believe this was just a domestic violence case she could refer to the police and social services and be done with. But the look in Damien's eyes told her he wasn't exaggerating. What do you suggest? She asked, hating the tremor in her voice. I have a property. Secure. Private. You'll both stay there tonight. Absolutely not. Dr. Mercer, I don't know you. I don't know what you want. And I sure as hell don't trust men who show up out of nowhere playing savior. Damien's mouth curved into something that might have been a smile on someone less dangerous. Smart, he said. I wouldn't trust me either. Then why should I? Because in about 30 minutes, Preston is going to finish the bottle of whiskey he started this afternoon, work up enough liquid courage to feel humiliated instead of scared, and come back here with a gun. And when he does, the only thing standing between you and a bullet will be a flimsy door lock and whatever prayer you believe in. Celine's mouth went dry. You're serious? I don't joke about murder. Ivy made a choking sound. Celine turned to her, saw the raw terror in her eyes, and felt something crack inside her chest. She'd spent her entire adult life trying to save people, but she'd never been the one who needed saving. If we go with you, Celine said slowly, turning back to Damien, what do you want in return? Nothing. Bullshit. Nobody helps for free. You're right. I'll want something eventually. Damien's gray eyes locked onto hers. But tonight, the only thing I want is to make sure you both live until morning. Everything else can wait. Celine stared at him. Every instinct screamed not to trust him, but every instinct also told her he was right about Preston. Fine, she said. One night. That's it. One night, Damien agreed. He pulled out his phone and typed something quickly. A car will be here in 5 minutes. Pack whatever you need. Make it fast. Celine helped Ivy off the exam table, her mind racing. This was insane. She was walking out of her clinic with a mafia boss and a battered woman, heading toward God knew where, based on the word of a man she'd met 10 minutes ago. But as she grabbed her medical bag and locked the clinic door behind them, she couldn't shake the feeling that her life had just split into before and after. Before she met Damien Volkov, and after. The black Mercedes SUV pulled up exactly 5 minutes later. The driver didn't speak, didn't even look at them, just held the door open while Damien ushered Celine and Ivy into the back seat, then slid in beside them. Celine watched the clinic disappear in the rearview mirror, swallowed by rain and darkness. Where are we going? She asked. Somewhere safe. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting tonight. Celine wanted to argue, but exhaustion was catching up with her. Ivy had fallen asleep against the window, her breath fogging the glass. The city blurred past in streaks of neon and shadow. 20 minutes later, they pulled up to a high-rise overlooking the Chicago River. Not just any high-rise, the kind of building that had a doorman in a suit, a lobby with marble floors, and an elevator that required a key card to access the upper floors. Damien led them to the penthouse. Celine stepped inside and felt her breath catch. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the water, leather furniture that probably cost more than her student loans, a kitchen with appliances she didn't even recognize. Everything sleek, modern, intimidating. It looked like a fortress disguised as luxury. There are 2 guest rooms down the hall, Damien said, bathroom between them. You'll find clothes in the closets. My assistant keeps the place stocked. Help yourselves to anything in the kitchen. The security system is armed. No one gets in without my permission." "And you?" Celine asked. "I'll be in my office. If you need anything, there's an intercom by the door." He started to walk away. "Wait," Celine said. Damien paused, glancing back over his shoulder. "Why are you doing this?" For the first time all night, something human flickered across his face, something almost sad. "Because nobody did it for me," he said quietly. Then he disappeared down a hallway, leaving Celine standing in a stranger's penthouse, holding a medical bag and 1,000 questions she didn't know how to ask. She got Ivy settled in one of the guest rooms, tucked her into a bed that looked like it belonged in a 5-star hotel, left water and painkillers on the nightstand. Then she collapsed in the other guest room and stared at the ceiling, listening to the rain hammering against the windows. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "The restraining order will be filed first thing in the morning. Sleep well, Dr. Mercer." Celine stared at the message. Then she checked the locks on the door, turned off the lights, and lay there in the dark, wondering what kind of man filed restraining orders in the middle of the night. And more importantly, what kind of man she'd just trusted with her life. Morning came too fast. Celine woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the smell of coffee drifting from somewhere deeper in the penthouse. For a disorienting moment, she forgot where she was. Then it all came rushing back. Preston, Ivy, Damien Volkov. She pulled on the clothes she'd found in the closet the night before. Expensive, perfectly tailored, unsettling in how well they fit, and followed the smell of coffee. Damien stood in the kitchen, dressed in dark slacks and a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows, pouring coffee like this was just another Tuesday. "Morning," he said without looking up. "You don't sleep?" "Not much." "That's not healthy." "Neither is your profession." Celine almost smiled despite herself. She accepted the coffee he handed her, black and strong, and leaned against the counter. "Did you really file a restraining order?" "Against Preston?" "Yes. Judge signed it an hour ago. He's also being investigated for tax evasion, fraud, and money laundering. By this afternoon, his assets will be frozen, and he'll have bigger problems than his wife leaving him." Celine blinked. "You did all that overnight?" "I told you, I make it my business to know things. And to ruin people? Only the ones who deserve it." There was no arrogance in his voice, just cold fact. "What about the people he owes money to?" Celine asked. "The trafficking network?" "They've been paid." "You paid them?" "Someone did." "That's not an answer." "No," Damien agreed, sipping his coffee. "It's not." Celine studied him over the rim of her cup. In daylight, he looked less like a villain from a mob movie and more like she didn't know what. There was something exhausted underneath all that control, something lonely. "Why do you care?" she asked. "Really?" Damien was quiet for a long moment. "My mother was like Ivy," he said finally. "Beautiful, terrified, married to a man who thought love and violence were the same thing. Nobody helped her, nobody stopped him. By the time I was old enough to do something about it, she was already gone." Celine's chest tightened. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. It made me who I am." "And who are you?" Damien looked at her then, really looked at her, and for the first time she saw something raw in those gray eyes. "Still figuring that out." Before Celine could respond, Ivy appeared in the doorway, looking small and fragile in an oversized sweatshirt. "Morning," she said softly. Celine immediately shifted into doctor mode, checking Ivy's injuries, asking about pain levels, making sure she'd eaten something. Damien watched from a distance, silent, unreadable. Over the next few days, a strange routine developed. Ivy stayed in the penthouse, slowly coming back to life. Color returned to her cheeks. She started eating again, started talking. Celine came by every day to check on her, even though she knew Ivy was healing just fine. The truth was, she came for other reasons. Damien was not what she expected. He worked from home most days, holed up in his office on endless phone calls conducted in 3 different languages. Sometimes men in expensive suits showed up for meetings that ended with handshakes and wire transfers. Celine didn't ask questions, but in the evenings, after Ivy went to bed, Celine and Damien would sit in the living room with coffee neither of them drank, talking about everything except who he really was. Books, music, the architecture of Chicago, the ethics of medicine, the cost of power. Damien had read more philosophy than most professors Celine knew. He quoted Dostoevsky and Camus like they were old friends. He asked questions that made her think harder than she'd thought in years. And he listened. Really listened. Not the performative listening men usually did while waiting for their turn to talk. He absorbed every word she said like it mattered. "You're not what I expected," Celine admitted one night. "What did you expect?" "I don't know. Someone crueler." "I am cruel," Damien said quietly, "just not to people who don't deserve it." "And you get to decide who deserves it?" "Someone has to." "That's a dangerous way to think." "So is believing everyone deserves mercy." Celine couldn't argue with that, but she also couldn't ignore the way her heart sped up every time he looked at her. The way the air changed when they were in the same room, the way she'd started thinking about him at 2 in the morning when she should have been sleeping. This was a mistake. She knew it was a mistake. Men like Damien Volkov didn't fall in love. They collected, controlled, consumed. But then one rainy evening, as Celine was leaving the penthouse, she heard shouting from down the hall. She followed the sound to Damien's office. The door was cracked open. Inside, Damien stood behind his desk, his jaw tight, his hands braced against the wood. A man in a cheap suit stood on the other side, red-faced and furious. "You can't just decide this," the man snarled. "There are procedures, rules. You think because you have money, I think because I have leverage," Damien interrupted, his voice dangerously soft. "And if you ever threaten one of my employees again, you'll discover exactly how much leverage I have. You're going to regret this, Volkov." "I doubt it." The man stormed past Celine without seeing her, slamming the door behind him. Celine knocked softly. "Come in," Damien said, his voice tight. She stepped inside. He looked up, saw her, and something in his expression cracked. "You heard that?" "Some of it. He's a union rep, trying to extort protection money from one of my construction companies. Threatened to hurt workers if I didn't pay." "What are you going to do?" "Handle it." "Meaning?" Damien was quiet for a moment. "Meaning he'll wake up tomorrow morning with federal investigators parked outside his house and a subpoena for documents that will prove he's been embezzling union funds for 3 years. Celine should have been horrified. Instead, she felt something else. Relief. Because the man standing in front of her wasn't a monster. He was something more complicated, something human. "You scare me," she admitted. "Good. You should be scared. Not because of what you do, because of how much I don't care what you do." Damien stared at her. Then he crossed the room in 3 strides and kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate, hungry, like he'd been holding back for weeks and finally couldn't anymore. Celine kissed him back just as hard, her fingers tangling in his hair, her back pressed against the wall. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Damien rested his forehead against hers. "This is a bad idea," he whispered. "Terrible idea," Celine agreed. "Only you should leave. Go home. Forget you ever met me." "Too late." Damien pulled back, his gray eyes searching hers. "I can't protect you from what I am, Celine." "I'm not asking you to." "You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You think you're too dangerous for someone like me. You think you'll ruin me, break me, turn me into something I'm not." She grabbed the front of his shirt. "But maybe I'm the one who's dangerous. Because I see exactly what you are, Damien Volkov, and I'm still standing here." Something fierce and fragile flickered across his face. "God help us both," he muttered. Then he kissed her again. That night changed everything. Celine didn't go home. She stayed. And somewhere between midnight and morning, tangled in sheets that cost more than her medical degree, she realized she'd crossed a line she could never uncross. Because falling for Damien Volkov wasn't like falling at all. It was like jumping. But the next evening, as Celine was locking up the clinic, she felt it. That prickling sensation between her shoulder blades. Someone was watching. She glanced over her shoulder. A black SUV idled across the street. Tinted windows. No plates. Her pulse kicked up. She walked faster toward her car. The SUV's engine revved. Celine broke into a run. Behind her, tires squealed. She didn't make it to her car. The SUV screeched around the corner, cutting her off. Doors flew open. 3 men stepped out, their faces hidden behind masks. One of them smiled. "Dr. Mercer, someone wants to talk to you." Celine backed toward the alley. "I'm calling the police." "No, you're not." The man grabbed her arm. That's when headlights exploded out of the darkness. A black sedan slammed into the SUV with the force of a freight train, sending metal shrieking across pavement. The men scattered. Damien stepped out of the sedan, his face carved from stone, a gun in his hand. He didn't say a word, just fired. The gunshot echoed through the alley like thunder trapped between concrete walls. One of the masked men dropped, clutching his leg, screaming. The other 2 scattered into the darkness, their footsteps slapping against wet pavement as they disappeared around the corner. Damien didn't chase them. He stood perfectly still, the gun hanging loose at his side, smoke curling from the barrel. Rain plastered his white shirt to his chest. Blood, not his, speckled his collar. Celine couldn't move. Her back was pressed against the brick wall, her medical bag clutched to her chest like a shield. Her heart slammed against her ribs so hard she thought they might crack. The wounded man writhed on the ground, moaning, leaving dark streaks across the asphalt. Damien walked over to him, calm as someone crossing a parking lot, and crouched down. He pressed the gun barrel against the man's forehead. "Who sent you?" The man whimpered. "I'll ask one more time. Who sent you?" "Konstantin," the man gasped. "Konstantin Sokolov." Damien went very still. Then he stood, pulled out his phone, and made a call. "Clean this up," he said into the receiver. "Alley behind Mercy Street Clinic. 1 injured. Make sure he gets medical attention before you question him." He hung up. Then he turned to Celine. For the first time since the gunshot, his expression cracked. Something raw and desperate flickered across his face. "Are you hurt?" Celine shook her head. She couldn't speak, couldn't process what she'd just seen. Damien crossed the space between them in 2 strides and pulled her into his arms, crushing her against his chest. His heart was racing just as hard as hers. "I'm sorry," he whispered into her hair. "I'm so sorry." Celine finally found her voice. "You shot him." "I had to." "You could have. There were other ways." "No, there weren't." Damien pulled back just enough to look at her. "If I'd hesitated, if I'd tried to negotiate, they would have taken you, and I would never have seen you again." His hands were shaking. Damien Volkov's hands were shaking. "Who's Konstantin?" Celine asked. Damien's jaw tightened. "Someone from a long time ago. Someone I thought I'd buried." "What does he want?" "Me." "Then why come after me?" Damien looked at her like the answer should be obvious. "Because hurting you is the fastest way to destroy me." The words landed like a physical blow. Celine stepped back, suddenly needing space, needing air, needing to think. "I can't do this," she said. "Celine, no, listen to me. I'm a doctor. I save lives. I'm not built for this. For guns and blood and men getting shot in alleys because someone wants to hurt you through me. I can't." "Then leave." The words came out flat, final. Celine stared at him. "What?" "Leave. Go home. Pretend you never met me. I'll make sure Konstantin knows you're off limits. You'll be safe." "Just like that?" "Just like that." Celine wanted to scream at him, wanted to hit him, wanted to demand why he was making this so easy when nothing about this was easy. But the look in his eyes stopped her, because he wasn't making it easy. He was letting her go before she got killed. Behind them, headlights appeared at the mouth of the alley. 2 black vans pulled up, and men in dark suits climbed out, moving with military precision. Damien's cleanup crew. "I'll have someone drive you home," Damien said quietly. "Pack a bag. I'm moving you to a secure location tonight." "I thought you said I could leave." "You can, but you're not doing it from your apartment. Not until I know Konstantin's been handled." "How long will that take?" "I don't know." Celine looked at the wounded man being loaded into one of the vans, looked at the blood pooling on the asphalt, looked at Damien standing there like a soldier on a battlefield he'd been fighting his entire life. "I want to go home," she said. "Okay. My home, not yours." Something painful flashed across Damien's face, but he nodded. I'll have security posted outside your building. You won't see them, but they'll be there. For how long? Until this is over. And what if it's never over? Damien didn't answer, because they both knew the truth. It would never be over. Not as long as she was connected to him. Celine let one of Damien's men drive her back to her apartment, a cramped one-bedroom in a building that smelled like old curry and broken dreams. She climbed the stairs alone, unlocked the door, and collapsed on her couch. Then she cried. Not because she was scared, because she'd realized something terrifying. She didn't want to leave, even after watching Damien shoot a man, even after nearly getting kidnapped, even knowing her life would never be normal again. She didn't want to leave him, and that was the most dangerous thing of all. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You're stronger than you think. Get some sleep. Celine stared at the message for a long time. Then she typed back, Who's Constantine? The response came immediately. Someone who taught me everything I know, and someone I betrayed. Celine's blood ran cold. Why? Because he was going to kill innocent people. I stopped him. He's been in prison for 8 years. Until last week. What happened last week? He got out. Celine closed her eyes. What does he want? The reply took longer this time. Everything I've built, everyone I care about, and then my life. Can you stop him? Another long pause. I don't know. Celine had never heard Damien sound uncertain before. It terrified her more than the gun. She texted back, I'm not leaving. You should. I know, I'm not. Why? Celine's fingers hovered over the keyboard. Then she typed, Because you're not the only one who's tired of being alone. She hit send before she could second-guess herself. Damien didn't respond. But 20 minutes later, there was a knock on her door. She opened it. He stood in the hallway, still in the blood-speckled shirt, looking like he'd aged 10 years in the last 2 hours. This is a mistake, he said. I know. You're going to get hurt. Probably. I won't be able to forgive myself if something happens to you. That's not your decision to make. Damien stared at her. Then he stepped inside, closed the door behind him, and kissed her like she was the only thing keeping him tethered to the earth. They didn't make it to the bedroom. Celine woke up tangled in sheets on her couch, Damien's arm heavy across her waist, morning light filtering through the blinds. For a few perfect seconds, she forgot about Constantine, forgot about the danger. Then Damien's phone rang. He answered without moving, his voice rough with sleep. What? Celine couldn't hear the other side of the conversation, but she felt Damien's entire body go tense. When? A pause. How many? Another pause. I'm on my way. He hung up. What happened? Celine asked. Constantine hit one of my warehouses, burned it to the ground. 3 of my men are in the hospital. Celine sat up. Are they okay? 2 will be. The third? Damien's jaw clenched. They're not sure yet. He stood, pulling on his clothes with mechanical efficiency. I need to go. I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. Those men are injured. I'm a doctor. Celine, you don't get to shut me out. Not anymore. Damien looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. Fine, but you stay in the car until I say it's safe. They drove to Northwestern Memorial Hospital in tense silence. Damien made 4 phone calls on the way, each conversation clipped and brutal. Celine caught fragments, something about surveillance footage, retaliation plans, moving shipments to secure locations. By the time they pulled into the hospital parking garage, she'd realized something. Damien wasn't just rich. He was the center of an entire network, a kingdom built in shadows. Inside the hospital, Damien moved through the corridors like he owned the place. Nurses stepped aside. Security guards nodded. A doctor in blood-stained scrubs approached immediately. Mr. Volkov, your men are stable. 2 have minor burns and smoke inhalation. The third, Marcus, he's in the ICU. Second-degree burns over 40% of his body. We're doing everything we can. I want private rooms, round-the-clock security, whatever they need. Of course. Damien turned to Celine. Can you check on them? Make sure they're getting the right care? Celine nodded. She spent the next hour moving between rooms, examining injuries, talking to nurses, reviewing treatment plans. The two men with minor injuries were young, mid-20s, terrified, grateful to see her. Marcus was unconscious in the ICU, hooked up to machines that beeped and hissed. His skin was blistered and raw. His chart made Celine's stomach turn. Third-degree burns on his arms. Lung damage from smoke inhalation. Possible infection. He might not make it. She found Damien in the waiting room staring out the window. Marcus needs a specialist, she said. The best burn surgeon you can find. I already made the call. She's flying in from Boston. When? Tonight. Celine sat down next to him. This is because of you. Because you stopped Constantine 8 years ago. Yes. What did he do? What was he planning that made you betray him? Damien was quiet for a long time. He was trafficking children, he said finally, selling them to the highest bidder. I'd worked with Constantine for 3 years, learned everything from him, built my reputation through his network, and then I found out what he was really doing. Celine's blood turned to ice. So you turned him in? No. I killed everyone involved, burned down the operation. Then I handed Constantine to the FBI with enough evidence to put him away for life. But 8 years isn't life. No, it's not. Why did they let him out? Good behavior, overcrowded prisons, technicalities. Damien's hands clenched into fists. It doesn't matter. He's out, and he's coming for me. So what do we do? We? Damien turned to look at her. There is no we, Celine. This is my war. It became mine the second those men grabbed me in the alley. I can still protect you. I don't want protection. I want to fight. You don't know how. Then teach me. Damien stared at her like she'd lost her mind. Maybe she had, but the alternative was hiding, waiting, letting Damien fight alone while she pretended to be safe. And Celine had never been good at pretending. You're serious, Damien said, completely. You're a doctor, and you're a criminal. Neither of us is what we're supposed to be, so what? Something almost like a smile flickered across Damien's face. You're insane. Probably. This is going to get you killed. Then at least I'll die standing. Damien shook his head, but Celine saw something shift in his eyes. Respect, maybe. Or fear. Or both. That evening, Damien took Celine to a warehouse on the outskirts of the city. Not burned. This one was still standing, still operational. Inside, men moved between shipping containers, checking inventory, loading trucks. Damien led her to a back office. Inside, a man sat at a desk covered in surveillance monitors. Celine, this is Victor. He runs security for my operations. Victor looked up. He was older, maybe 50, with a scar running down the left side of his face and eyes that had seen too much. So you're the doctor, Victor said. And you're the man who's supposed to keep me alive. Victor's mouth twitched. I like her. Don't, Damien said flatly. Teach her how to shoot. Victor raised an eyebrow. You serious? Completely. You know what Constantine will do if he finds out she's armed? He'll do it anyway. At least this way she has a chance. Victor studied Celine for a long moment. Then he stood. All right, Doc. Let's see if you can hit the broad side of a building. They went to a shooting range in the warehouse basement, a long, narrow room with targets at one end and a rack of weapons at the other. Victor handed Celine a handgun. Glock 19, standard issue, 15 rounds. Simple, reliable, won't jam if you treat it right. Celine took the weapon carefully. It was heavier than she expected. First rule, Victor said, never point it at anything you don't intend to kill. Second rule, if you pull the trigger, you commit. No warning shots, no shooting to wound. You shoot center mass until the threat stops moving. Understood? Celine nodded. Good. Now aim. She raised the gun, her hands shaking slightly. Breathe, Victor said. Steady. Focus on the front sight. Squeeze the trigger. Don't pull. Celine fired. The recoil jolted her arms. The sound was deafening even with ear protection. She missed the target completely. Again. She fired again and again and again. By the time the magazine was empty, she'd managed to hit the target 3 times. All outer rings, nothing fatal. Not bad for a first-timer, Victor said, but not good enough to save your life. How do I get better? Practice. Lots of it. Damien appeared in the doorway, watching. She's a natural. Victor said dryly. She's terrified, Damien corrected. Good. Fear keeps you alive. Celine reloaded the gun. Victor showed her how, and fired again. This time she hit closer to center mass. They spent 2 hours in that basement. By the end, Celine's arms ached, her ears were ringing, and she'd put enough holes in the target to make Victor grudgingly nod. You'll do, he said. Just remember, shooting paper targets is easy. Shooting a person coming at you with a knife is different. Your hands will shake, your vision will tunnel, you'll forget everything I taught you. Then what do I do? You shoot anyway. Back in the car, Damien drove in silence. Celine stared out the window, watching the city blur past. You didn't have to do that, Damien said finally. Yes, I did. You're a doctor, Celine. You save lives. And tonight I learned how to take them. Guess we're even now. Damien's hands tightened on the steering wheel. This isn't a joke. I'm not laughing. If you kill someone, it changes you. You don't come back from that. You did. No, I didn't. I just got better at pretending. Celine looked at him, really looked at him, at the exhaustion etched into his face, the tension in his shoulders, the shadows under his eyes. When's the last time you slept? She asked. I don't remember. Damien, I can't sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I see Marcus in that hospital bed. I see you in that alley. I see every person who's gotten hurt because they were close to me. His voice cracked on the last word. Celine reached over and took his hand. Then let me help you carry it. You shouldn't have to. Too late. I'm already here. Damien pulled over abruptly, parking on a side street, and turned to face her. I'm going to kill Constantine, he said quietly. Not arrest him. Not turn him in. Kill him. Because it's the only way to end this. And when I do, I'll become exactly the monster everyone thinks I am. You're not a monster. How can you say that after everything you've seen? Because monsters don't cry for the people they've hurt. Monsters don't lose sleep over collateral damage. Monsters don't fall apart when someone they care about gets threatened. Celine squeezed his hand. You're not a monster, Damien. You're just a man trying to survive in a world that doesn't forgive weakness. And you're trying to survive in my world, which makes you either the bravest person I've ever met or the most foolish. Maybe both. Damien pulled her into a kiss, desperate, grateful, terrified. When they broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. Promise me something, he whispered. What? If this goes wrong, if Constantine wins, if I can't protect you, promise me you'll run. Promise me you'll disappear and never look back. Damien, promise me. Celine wanted to lie, but she'd never been good at lying. I can't promise that. Celine, because if you go down, I'm going down with you. That's the deal. Take it or leave it. Damien stared at her. Then he kissed her again, harder this time, like he was trying to memorize the taste of her. They drove back to the penthouse in silence. Inside, Ivy was waiting in the living room, curled up on the couch with a book. She looked better. Stronger. The bruises had faded, she'd put on weight, started smiling again. Hey, she said, looking up. How was your day? Celine almost laughed. How was your day? Like they were roommates coming home from normal jobs. Long, Celine said. I made dinner, pasta, nothing fancy, but it's edible. You didn't have to? I wanted to. Ivy stood, suddenly serious. You saved my life, Celine. Both of you did. Let me do something small in return. They ate together, Celine, Damien, and Ivy, around the table like a dysfunctional family trying to pretend everything was normal. It almost worked. Until Damien's phone rang. He glanced at the screen, and his entire expression went cold. Excuse me, he said, standing. He disappeared into his office. Celine and Ivy exchanged glances. Is he okay? Ivy asked quietly. I don't know. He looks different since yesterday, like something broke. Something did. What? Celine opened her mouth to answer, but Damien's voice carried from the office, sharp, furious. I don't care what he wants. Tell him if he touches anyone else, I'll... The line went dead. Silence. Then a crash. The sound of something heavy hitting the wall. Celine stood and walked to the office door. Damien stood with his back to her, breathing hard, his phone shattered on the floor. Damien? He didn't turn around. He took another one. Another warehouse. 5 men hospitalized. 1 dead. Celine's stomach dropped. Who? Tommy? 23 years old, started working for me 6 months ago, sending money home to his mother in Poland. His voice was hollow. This is my fault. Every person Constantine hurts, every life he destroys, it's because of me. No, it's because of him. I created him. Damien finally turned around. His eyes were red. When I betrayed him, I didn't just make an enemy. I created something worse, a ghost with nothing left to lose. Then we stop him. How? He's invisible. He moves through the city like smoke. By the time we get to one location, he's already hitting another. So we set a trap. With what bait? Celine took a deep breath. Me. Damien's face went white. Absolutely not. He wants to hurt you. The fastest way to do that is through me. So we let him think he can take me. We let him come. And when he does, you end it. No, I won't risk you like that. You're already risking me. Every second I'm with you, I'm a target. At least this way I have control. Celine, listen to me. She crossed the room and grabbed his face, forcing him to look at her. I'm not some fragile thing you need to protect. I'm not hiding while people die. We end this. Together. Or we don't end it at all. Damien's hands came up to cover hers. If something happens to you, it won't. You can't promise that. Neither can you, but we're doing this anyway. For a long moment, Damien just stared at her. Then he pulled her into his arms and held her so tightly she could barely breathe. You're going to be the death of me, he whispered, or the life of you. We'll find out. They spent the next 2 days planning. Victor didn't like the plan. Using her as bait is suicide, he said flatly. It's the only option, Damien replied. Then find another option. There isn't one. This is insane. Constantine will see through it immediately. No, he won't. Because he's arrogant. He thinks I'm desperate. He's right. Victor looked at Celine. You understand what you're signing up for? Constantine doesn't just kill people. He makes them suffer first. I understand. And you're still willing to do this? Yes. Victor shook his head. You're both insane. Probably, Damien agreed. The trap was simple. Celine would return to her clinic, resume her normal schedule, make herself visible, vulnerable. Damien's men would watch from a distance, close enough to intervene, far enough not to spook Constantine's people. When Constantine made his move, they'd be ready. It was a terrible plan, but it was the only one they had. On the 3rd day, Celine opened the clinic at 8 in the morning. Maria, her receptionist, nearly cried when she saw her. Where have you been? I've been calling for days. I'm sorry, family emergency. Are you okay? I'm fine. Let's get to work. Patients filed in throughout the morning. Familiar faces, grateful smiles, the usual chaos of a clinic held together with duct tape and determination. Celine fell into the rhythm of it, stitching wounds, prescribing antibiotics, holding hands while delivering bad news. For a few hours, she almost forgot about Constantine. Almost. At lunch, she stepped outside for air. The street was busy, pedestrians hurrying past, cars honking, the city alive and indifferent. Across the street, leaning against a lamppost, a man watched her. Tall, thin, gray hair, cold eyes. He smiled. Then he disappeared into the crowd. Celine's blood turned to ice. She pulled out her phone and texted Damien. He's here. The response came immediately. Get back inside, lock the door, we're coming. Celine turned to go back into the clinic. That's when she saw them. 2 men, black suits, moving toward her with purpose. She ran into the clinic, slamming the door behind her, locking it with shaking hands. Maria looked up, startled. Dr. Mercer? Call 911, now. What? The front window shattered. Glass exploded inward. Maria screamed. Patients scattered. The 2 men stepped through the broken window, guns drawn. Dr. Mercer, one of them said calmly. You're coming with us. Celine backed toward the exam room, her hand sliding into her pocket, fingers closing around the Glock Victor had given her. Stay back. Don't make this difficult. I said stay back. The man took a step forward. Celine pulled the gun. Her hands were shaking, her vision tunneled. Everything Victor had taught her evaporated, but she aimed center mass and squeezed the trigger. The gunshot was deafening. The man went down. The second man raised his weapon. That's when the clinic door exploded open and Damien stormed in, flanked by Victor and 3 other men. Gunfire erupted. Celine dropped to the floor, covering her head, her ears ringing. When the shooting stopped, both of Constantine's men were on the ground. One dead, one bleeding. Damien crossed the room and pulled Celine to her feet, checking her for injuries, his hands frantic. Are you hurt? No, I shot him. I know, you did good. I killed someone. I know. I'm a doctor. I'm not supposed to. You did what you had to do. Celine looked at the body on the floor, at the blood pooling beneath him, at the gun still in her hand, and she felt something inside her shift, break, rearrange. Victor was right. You don't come back from killing someone. But maybe that was okay. Maybe she didn't want to come back. Sirens screamed in the distance. We need to go, Victor said. The police, Celine started. Will be handled, Damien interrupted. But not if we're still here. He took her hand and pulled her toward the back exit. They ran through alleys, climbed into a waiting car, and disappeared into the city. By the time the police arrived at the clinic, they were gone. Back at the penthouse, Celine sat on the bathroom floor, staring at her hands. There was blood under her fingernails. Not hers. Damien knocked softly on the door. Celine? She didn't answer. He came in anyway, kneeling beside her. Talk to me. I killed someone. Yes. I took an oath, do no harm. He was going to kill you. I know. Then why do you look like your world just ended? Celine finally looked at him. Because it did. The person I was this morning, she's gone. I can't get her back. Damien took her hand. No, you can't. I'm sorry. Are you? Celine's voice was bitter. Or is this what you wanted all along? To turn me into someone like you? Never. I never wanted this for you. Then why didn't you stop me? Because you wouldn't have let me. Celine closed her eyes. He was right. She'd made this choice, every step of the way. What happens now? She whispered. Now we finish this. How? Damien's jaw tightened. Constantine will come for you again, but next time he'll come himself. He won't send hired guns. He'll want to look you in the eyes when he kills you. So we wait. No, we hunt. How do you hunt a ghost? You make him visible. Damien stood and pulled Celine to her feet. Get some rest. Tomorrow we go to war. But Celine didn't rest. She stood at the window staring out at the Chicago skyline and realized something. She wasn't afraid anymore. Not of Constantine, not of dying, not of what she'd become. She was afraid of only one thing, losing Damien before she got the chance to tell him she loved him. And that fear, that raw, desperate human fear, was the most dangerous thing of all, because it meant she had something to lose. The next morning, Damien's phone rang at dawn. He answered, listened for 30 seconds, and went completely still. When? A pause. Where? Another pause. I'm on my way. He hung up and looked at Celine. Constantine has Ivy. Celine's heart stopped. What? She left the penthouse last night. Security footage shows her getting into a car around 2 a.m., voluntary, no struggle. That doesn't make sense. Why would she? Because Constantine got to her first, convinced her of something, promised her something. I don't know, but he has her. Where? That's the problem. We don't know. Celine grabbed her jacket. Then we find out. They went to the security office, a room filled with monitors and keyboards and men who looked like they hadn't slept in days. Victor pulled up footage from last night. There. Ivy, walking through the penthouse lobby, calm as anything, getting into a black sedan, driving away. Run the plates, Damien ordered. Already did. Registered to a shell company. Dead end. Traffic cameras? Lost the car after 6 blocks. Then we track her phone. Turned off. Damien slammed his fist on the desk. He's playing with us. Or he's making a trade, Victor said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him.
What kind of trade? Celine asked. Ivy for you. He knows you'll come for her. He's counting on it. Damien's face went white. No, absolutely not.
It's the only move that makes sense, Victor continued. He takes someone you care about, uses her as bait. You walk into the trap trying to save her. Then we don't walk into the trap. And let Ivy die? Silence. Celine felt her stomach twist. We save her, she said. Celine, we save her. I don't care what it costs. She's innocent. She's been through hell already. I'm not letting Constantine add to it. Even if it means walking into an ambush? Especially then. Damien stared at her. Then he turned to Victor. Find her. I don't care what it takes. Tear this city apart if you have to, but find her. Victor nodded and started making calls. Celine pulled Damien aside. Whatever happens, don't. Whatever happens, she continued, I need you to know something. Celine, please. I love you. The words hung in the air between them. Damien looked at her like she'd just shot him. You can't. Too late. Celine, I've done terrible things. I've hurt people. I've killed people. I don't care. I love you anyway. Damien pulled her into his arms, burying his face in her hair. I don't deserve you. Probably not, but you're stuck with me. He pulled back just enough to kiss her, soft, desperate, terrified. I love you too, he whispered against her lips. And I'm going to keep you alive if it's the last thing I do. 12 hours later, Victor found Ivy. Or rather, Constantine let them find her. A single text message appeared on Damien's phone from an unknown number. Abandoned steel mill, Route 41, midnight. Come alone or she dies. Damien showed Celine the message. It's a trap, she said. Obviously. So what do we do? Damien looked at her, really looked at her, and Celine saw the moment he made his decision. We walk into it. The abandoned steel mill loomed against the night sky like a rusted skeleton, its windows shattered, its frame twisted by decades of neglect and decay, the kind of place where screams went unheard and bodies disappeared into concrete foundations. Damien pulled the car to a stop half a mile out, killing the engine, letting darkness swallow them whole. Celine sat in the passenger seat, the Glock heavy in her lap, her heart hammering so hard she could taste copper in her mouth. Last chance to stay in the car, Damien said quietly. Not happening. Celine, we've had this conversation. I'm not staying behind. Victor leaned forward from the back seat, his scarred face illuminated by the faint glow of surveillance equipment. Thermal imaging shows at least 8 heat signatures inside. Could be more. Constantine's in the center of the building, second floor. Ivy's with him. Alive? Damien asked. For now. Celine's stomach twisted. What's the plan? Victor and his team create a distraction on the east side. Draw their attention. We go in through the west entrance, move fast, get to Ivy, and get out before they realize what's happening. That's not a plan. That's a prayer. It's the only one we have. Damien checked his weapon, a matte black handgun that looked like it had seen more death than a morgue, and looked at Celine. Stay behind me. Don't shoot unless you have to, and if things go wrong, they won't. If they do, you run. You don't look back. You don't try to save me. You just run. Celine wanted to argue, but the look in his eyes stopped her. He didn't think they were walking out of this alive. I love you, she said. I know. He kissed her once, hard and desperate, then opened the car door. The night air was cold and thick with the smell of rust and rotting metal. Celine followed Damien through the darkness, her boots crunching on gravel, her breathing too loud in her own ears. Victor and his men peeled off toward the east side of the building, disappearing into shadows like ghosts. Damien led Celine to a side entrance, a metal door hanging off its hinges, corroded by time and weather. He pushed it open slowly. Silence. Then voices echoing from somewhere deeper inside the building. They moved through the darkness, stepping carefully over debris and broken glass. The steel mill was a maze of collapsed walkways and rusted machinery, everything sharp edges and tetanus waiting to happen. Celine's hands were slick with sweat on the gun. Every shadow looked like an attacker. Every sound made her flinch. They reached a stairwell and started climbing. That's when the explosion ripped through the east side of the building. The entire structure shook, dust rained from the ceiling. Somewhere in the distance, men started shouting. "Victor's in," Damien muttered. Gunfire erupted, sharp cracks echoing through the steel skeleton. Damien moved faster, pulling Celine up the stairs two at a time. They reached the second floor. A long corridor stretched ahead, lit by flickering industrial lights that cast everything in sickly yellow. Doors hung open on either side, leading to offices that had been gutted decades ago. At the end of the corridor, light spilled from a larger room. Damien held up his hand. "Stop!" He crept forward, weapon raised, his movements precise and controlled. Celine followed, her heart trying to climb out of her throat. They reached the doorway. Inside, the room opened into what had once been a supervisor's office, now just an empty space with broken furniture and graffiti-covered walls. In the center stood Konstantin Sokolov. He was older than Celine expected, mid-50s maybe. Gray hair slicked back, lean and sharp like a knife. He wore an expensive suit that looked absurd in the ruins, like a businessman who'd wandered into hell and decided to stay. Beside him, duct taped to a chair, was Ivy. Her face was bruised, her lips split, tears streaked her cheeks. But she was alive. "Damien," Constantine said, his voice smooth and pleasant, like they were old friends meeting for coffee. "Right on time. I always admired your punctuality." Damien stepped into the room, his gun trained on Constantine's chest. "Let her go." "Of course. Eventually. First we talk." "There's nothing to talk about." "Oh, I disagree. We have 8 years of conversation to catch up on." "You mean 8 years you spent in prison because you were trafficking children?" Constantine's smile didn't waver. "Is that what you tell yourself? That you were the hero? That you saved those poor innocent children from the monster?" "I stopped you. You destroyed everything I built, everything we built together. Do you remember, Damien, before you developed a conscience? We were gods. We controlled half this city. And then you decided to play saint. I decided to stop being a coward." Constantine's smile finally cracked. "Coward? You think betrayal takes courage? It does when the alternative is becoming you. And yet here you are, still a killer, still a criminal, still ruling through fear and violence. Tell me, Damien, how are you any different from me?" Celine saw Damien's jaw tighten, saw the words land like bullets. "The difference," Damien said quietly, "is I don't hurt innocent people. No. You just let them get hurt instead. Like this lovely doctor you've dragged into our world. Tell me, Dr. Mercer, do you know how many people Damien has killed?" Celine's mouth went dry. "Doesn't matter." "Oh, but it does." 17. That's how many people died the night Damien burned down my operation. Guards, accountants, drivers. Some of them knew what we were doing. Most didn't. They were just men trying to feed their families. But Damien killed them all anyway. Because that's what heroes do, apparently. "They were part of your network," Damien said, his voice tight. "They enabled you. And how many people enable you? How many drivers, accountants, guards work for your empire? Are they all complicit too? Or are you special?" "Shut up." I spent 8 years in a cage thinking about this moment, about what I'd say when I finally saw you again. And you know what I realized? You didn't betray me because I was trafficking children. You betrayed me because you wanted my empire. You saw an opportunity and you took it. The children were just an excuse. That's not true, isn't it? Look at what you built after I went away. You took over my territories, my connections, my reputation. You became me. So tell me, Damien, who's the real monster here? Celine saw something flicker across Damien's face. Doubt, pain, guilt. And in that half-second of hesitation, everything went wrong. Constantine moved, not toward Damien, toward Ivy. He pulled a knife from his jacket and pressed it against her throat. "Drop the gun, Damien. Don't drop it, or I open her neck right here." Damien's hand shook. Then he lowered the weapon. "Good boy. Now kick it away." Damien obeyed. Constantine smiled. "You always were too sentimental. It's your greatest weakness. You care about people." "Me? I learned a long time ago that caring gets you killed." He looked at Celine. "You too, Doctor. Drop the gun." Celine's hands were shaking so hard she could barely hold the weapon. "Do it," Damien said quietly. "Please." She dropped it. Constantine nodded toward one of his men standing in the shadows. Celine hadn't even seen him there, and the man collected both weapons. Much better. Now we can talk like civilized people. You got what you wanted, Damien said. Let her go. Which one? Both of them. But then I'd have no leverage, and I need leverage, Damien, because what I want isn't your death. Not yet. What I want is worse. What do you want? Constantine's smile turned cruel. I want you to watch everything you've built burn. I want you to feel the same helplessness I felt sitting in that prison cell while my empire crumbled. I want you to understand what it means to lose everything. So this is about revenge. This is about balance. Constantine's phone buzzed. He pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and his smile widened. Perfect timing. Damien, you should know, while you've been here playing hero, my men have been busy. 3 of your warehouses are currently on fire. Your accounts in the Cayman Islands have been drained, and your precious Victor? Well, let's just say the distraction on the east side didn't go quite as planned. Damien's face went white. You're lying. Am I? Check your phone. Damien pulled out his phone with shaking hands. Celine watched his expression crumble as he read the messages flooding in. How? You're not the only one with resources, Damien. The difference is, I spent 8 years planning this. Every detail, every contingency. You walked exactly where I wanted you to walk. Victor is alive, for now. I'm not a complete monster, but he and his men are currently pinned down in the East Wing with no way out. By the time they realize it's a trap, this will all be over. Celine felt the room tilt. They'd been played. Completely. What do you want? Damien asked, his voice hollow. I told you. I want you to lose everything. But first, I want you to make a choice. Constantine grabbed Ivy by the hair, yanking her head back, the knife still pressed against her throat. This woman, your charity case. The battered wife you saved because it made you feel like you were still human. Then he looked at Celine. And this woman, the doctor you've fallen in love with. The one person in this miserable world who sees you as something other than a monster. Celine's blood turned to ice. I'm going to kill one of them, Constantine continued pleasantly. You get to choose which one lives. You have 10 seconds. No, Damien whispered. 10. I won't. 9. Constantine, please. 8. Celine's mind raced. There had to be a way out. Had to be something they'd missed. 7. Ivy was sobbing, the sound muffled behind the duct tape covering her mouth. 6. Damien looked at Celine. His eyes were filled with so much pain it physically hurt to see. 5. Choose me, Celine said. What? Kill me. Let Ivy go. Celine, no. She's innocent. I'm not. I've already crossed lines I can't uncross. Save her. 4. I'm not choosing, Damien said, his voice breaking. I won't. 3. Then I'll choose for you, Constantine said. The doctor dies. He moved the knife away from Ivy's throat, pointed it at Celine. 2. That's when Ivy moved. She threw her weight backward, chair and all, crashing into Constantine. The knife skittered across the floor. Constantine stumbled. Damien lunged for the gun on the ground. Constantine's man raised his weapon. Celine screamed. Gunfire exploded through the room. Celine hit the floor, covering her head, her ears ringing. When she looked up, Damien was standing over Constantine's man, the gun smoking in his hand. The man was dead. But Constantine was already on his feet, backing toward the door. This isn't over, Damien. This is just the beginning. He ran. Damien chased after him. Celine scrambled to Ivy, pulling the duct tape off her mouth, working on the restraints. Are you okay? Are you hurt? Ivy was shaking so hard her teeth were chattering. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. He called me. He said, if I helped him, he'd make sure Preston never touched me again. He said he'd protect me. I didn't know. I didn't realize. It's okay. You're okay. We're getting out of here. Celine finally got the restraints off. Ivy collapsed into her arms, sobbing. Outside in the corridor, more gunfire erupted. Celine grabbed the knife Constantine had dropped and pulled Ivy to her feet. We need to move. Now! They stumbled toward the door. The corridor was chaos. Victor and his men had broken through from the East Wing. They were fighting Constantine's people in the narrow space, bullets ricocheting off metal walls. Celine pulled Ivy in the opposite direction, away from the fighting, searching for another way out. They found a service stairwell and started descending. Behind them, the gunfire intensified. They reached the ground floor and ran. Outside, the cold air hit Celine's lungs like ice water. Ivy was still sobbing, barely able to stand. Celine half carried her toward the tree line, away from the building, away from the death. They collapsed behind a rusted dumpster, gasping for breath. That's when Celine realized Damien wasn't with them. She looked back at the steel mill. Flames were starting to climb the east side where Victor's distraction had been. Smoke poured from broken windows, and somewhere inside, Damien was still fighting. "Stay here," Celine told Ivy. "What? No." "Whoa. I have to go back. You'll die." "If I don't go back, he'll die." Celine pressed the knife into Ivy's hands. "If anyone comes near you, use it. Don't hesitate." Then she ran back toward the building. The heat hit her before she reached the entrance, waves of it rolling out from the fire spreading through the east wing. She covered her mouth with her sleeve and plunged inside. Smoke filled the corridors. Visibility was almost zero. Celine stumbled through the darkness, calling Damien's name, coughing, her eyes streaming. She found him on the second floor. He was on his knees in the middle of what had been the supervisor's office, blood running down the side of his face, his gun on the floor beside him. Standing over him was Constantine. He had a gun pointed at Damien's head. "Dr. Mercer," Constantine said without looking away from Damien. "How predictable. You just couldn't stay away." "Let him go." "Why would I do that? I finally have exactly what I want." "You said you wanted him to lose everything. If you kill him now, he doesn't lose anything. He just dies. Where's the satisfaction in that?" Constantine tilted his head, considering. "An excellent point. But you see, I've realized something. Damien's already lost everything. His empire is burning. His men are dying. His reputation will be destroyed by morning. The only thing left is his life, and I think I'll take that too. You'll never get out of this building alive. Neither will you, but at least I'll die knowing I won." He cocked the gun. Celine moved without thinking. She threw herself at Constantine, driving her shoulder into his ribs. They went down together, crashing into the floor. The gun fired. The bullet went wide. Celine's ears rang. Constantine threw her off him like she weighed nothing. She hit the wall hard, the impact knocking the air from her lungs. Through blurred vision, she saw Constantine stand, saw him raise the gun again, saw Damien still on his knees, too injured to move. This was it. This was how they died. But then a figure appeared in the doorway. Victor. Blood-soaked and limping, but alive. He raised his weapon and fired 3 times. All 3 bullets found their target. Constantine stumbled backward, his eyes wide with surprise, blood blooming across his expensive suit. He looked down at the wounds. Then he looked at Damien. "You win," he said quietly. Then he collapsed. Victor lowered his gun. "We need to go. This whole place is coming down." Celine scrambled to Damien, pulling him to his feet. He was barely conscious, leaning heavily against her. "Can you walk?" "I can try." They stumbled toward the door, Victor supporting Damien's other side. Behind them, flames roared through the building, consuming everything. They made it outside seconds before part of the roof collapsed. Ivy was waiting by the tree line, still shaking but alive. Victor's men were regrouping, loading wounded into vehicles. Sirens wailed in the distance. "Ambulances," Victor said, "and police. We need to leave. Now!" They climbed into the nearest vehicle. As they pulled away, Celine looked back at the steel mill. It was an inferno now, flames climbing into the night sky, visible for miles. And somewhere inside, Constantine's body was burning. It was over. Finally over. But as Celine looked at Damien, his face pale, his breathing shallow, blood still seeping through his shirt, she realized the real battle was just beginning. Because they'd survived the war. Now they had to survive the aftermath. At the hospital, doctors swarmed Damien the moment they arrived. Concussion, cracked ribs, a bullet grazed across his shoulder that had been bleeding steadily for the past hour. He'd be okay. Eventually. Celine sat in the waiting room with Ivy, both of them wrapped in shock blankets that did nothing to stop the shaking. Victor appeared an hour later, his arm in a sling, looking exhausted. "He's stable. They're keeping him overnight for observation. And your men? 2 dead, 3 injured. Could have been worse. Celine closed her eyes. 2 men dead because of this. Because of her. It's not your fault, Victor said, reading her expression. How is it not my fault? Because you didn't start this war. Constantine did. 8 years ago. We just finished it. At what cost? Victor sat down beside her. I've been working for Damien for 6 years. Before that, I worked for men like Constantine. Men who didn't care who got hurt as long as they got what they wanted. Damien's not perfect. He's done terrible things. But he's also saved more lives than he's taken. Including yours. Including hers. He nodded toward Ivy. That has to count for something. Does it? You tell me. You're the one who fell in love with him. Celine didn't have an answer for that. The police came an hour later. Detectives in cheap suits with tired eyes, asking questions about the fire, about the bodies they'd found in the wreckage, about what exactly had happened tonight. Victor handled most of it. He was good at lying. Or maybe it wasn't lying. Maybe it was just controlling the narrative, self-defense. Constantine's men attacked first. Damien and his people were just trying to rescue Ivy. The fire was started by Constantine's explosives. Everything neat and clean and almost believable. The detectives didn't look convinced, but they didn't have enough evidence to prove otherwise. By morning, Celine was allowed to see Damien. He was awake, propped up in bed, looking like death warmed over. Hey, he said, his voice rough. Hey yourself. She sat down beside him, taking his hand carefully. How are you feeling? Like I got hit by a truck. Close enough. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Damien said, Thank you. For what? For coming back, in the mill. You should have run. Should have saved yourself, but you came back. Of course I did. I love you, remember? I remember. I keep expecting you to wake up and realize what a mistake this is. It probably is a mistake, but it's my mistake to make. Damien's mouth curved into something almost like a smile. You're insane. So you keep telling me. He squeezed her hand. What happens now? You heal. We rebuild. We figure out how to live in whatever this new world looks like. And us? What about us? Do we survive this? Celine leaned down and kissed him gently. We already did. But that night, alone in Damien's penthouse, because the hospital had finally released him and Victor had insisted on armed guards outside the door, Celine stood at the window overlooking the Chicago River and realized something. They'd won the battle, but they hadn't won the war, because Constantine's network didn't die with him. His people were still out there. His empire was still operational. And somewhere in the shadows, someone was already planning the next move, the next attack, the next war. Damien appeared beside her, moving carefully because of his cracked ribs. Can't sleep? Can you? Not really. They stood together watching the city lights reflect off the water. Victor found something, Damien said quietly. In Constantine's phone. Messages. Encrypted. He's been working with someone. Someone inside my organization. Celine's blood went cold. What? Someone's been feeding him information for months. That's how he knew where to hit, when to strike, how to stay ahead of us. Who? We don't know yet, but Victor's working on it. So it's not over. No, it's not. Celine turned to face him. Then what do we do? Damien looked at her, and for the first time since she'd met him, she saw real fear in his eyes. We find the traitor before they find us. Because whoever it is, they know everything. Where we live, who we care about, every weakness we have. And if we can't find them? Damien's jaw tightened. Then we don't survive this. Celine wanted to argue, wanted to say they'd figure it out, wanted to believe everything would be okay. But as she looked into Damien's eyes, she realized they were both thinking the same thing. They'd survived Constantine. But the person who'd betrayed them, the person who'd been working from the inside, was still out there. Still watching. Still waiting. And when they finally made their move, there would be nowhere left to hide. Because the worst enemies aren't the ones you can see coming. They're the ones standing right beside you. Victor found the traitor 3 days later. He called Damien at 4 a.m, his voice tight and cold in a way that made Celine's stomach drop, even though she could only hear one side of the conversation. Damien sat up in bed, wincing from his cracked ribs, his face going pale in the darkness. "You're sure?" A pause. "How long?" Another pause. "Jesus Christ." He hung up. Celine turned on the bedside lamp. What happened? Damien stared at the wall like he was seeing through it into some terrible future. Marcus. The man from the warehouse fire? The one in the ICU? He didn't make it, died an hour ago. Infection, organ failure. Damien's hands clenched into fists. Victor was there when it happened. The doctor said his last words were a confession. Celine's throat went tight. What kind of confession? He was the leak. He had been feeding information to Constantine for 6 months. Names, locations, schedules, everything. The room felt like it was tilting. Why would he? Money. Constantine was paying him $50,000 a month. Marcus's mother needed experimental cancer treatment. Insurance wouldn't cover it. He was desperate. Oh my God. He didn't know what Constantine was planning, didn't know people would die. By the time he realized what he'd done, it was too late to stop it. Damien's voice cracked. He asked Victor to tell me he was sorry. Then he died. Celine reached for his hand. Damien, I trusted him. I brought him into my organization. I promised his mother I'd take care of him, and he betrayed me because I didn't pay him enough to save her. That's not your fault, isn't it? I built an empire on violence and fear, and I'm surprised when the people around me get desperate, when they make terrible choices because they're trapped. He made his own choice. Because I didn't give him a better one. Celine didn't know what to say to that, because maybe he was right. They sat in silence while the city woke up outside the window. Car horns, sirens, the sound of 8 million people pretending yesterday didn't happen. Victor said something else, Damien said quietly. Before Marcus died, he gave up one more piece of information. Constantine wasn't working alone. He had a partner, someone who wanted me destroyed just as badly. Who? Marcus didn't know the name, but he heard Constantine on the phone with them. A woman, American accent, someone with access to law enforcement databases and financial records. Celine felt ice crawl up her spine. What does that mean? It means Constantine's network is bigger than we thought. And whoever this woman is, she's still out there, still planning, still waiting. So what do we do? Damien looked at her, and for the first time since they'd met, she saw something like defeat in his eyes. I don't know. That scared her more than anything. Over the next week, the city erupted. Federal agents swarmed Damien's properties, executing search warrants, seizing records, freezing accounts. Someone had tipped them off, probably the mysterious woman, and now everything Damien had built was under siege. His lawyers worked around the clock, but the evidence was damning. Money laundering, racketeering, conspiracy. Not enough to convict him outright, but enough to destroy his reputation and cripple his operations. Meanwhile, attacks kept coming. A shipment intercepted at the docks. 2 of Damien's clubs firebombed in the same night. A drive-by shooting that missed Victor by inches. Whoever Constantine's partner was, she wasn't waiting, she was moving. Celine tried to go back to work at the clinic, but on her second day someone left a dead rat on her doorstep with a note attached. You're next. Victor shut down the clinic immediately. You're not safe there. You're not safe anywhere until we find this woman. I can't just hide. You can and you will. Damien's already lost enough people. He won't survive losing you. Celine wanted to argue, but when she saw Damien, exhausted, hollow-eyed, barely eating, spending 20 hours a day trying to hold together an empire that was hemorrhaging from 1,000 cuts, she realized Victor was right. Damien was breaking, and she was the only thing keeping him tethered. 10 days after Marcus died, Victor burst into the penthouse at midnight with a laptop and a flash drive. I found her. Damien was at his desk, surrounded by papers and empty coffee cups. He looked up, and something dangerous flickered in his eyes. Who? Special Agent Rebecca Navarro, FBI. Organized Crime Division. She's been building a case against you for 3 years. When Constantine got out of prison, she approached him, made a deal. He helps her take you down. She makes sure he walks free afterward. Show me. Victor opened the laptop and pulled up surveillance footage. There. Grainy black and white, but unmistakable. A woman in a dark suit meeting Constantine in a parking garage 2 weeks before the warehouse attack. How did you get this? Better you don't know. Damien studied the screen, his jaw tight.
Where is she now? Chicago field office, 3rd floor, corner office. She's there every night until 10. Security? Federal building, armed guards, metal detectors, cameras everywhere. So we can't get to her. Not directly. Damien leaned back in his chair, thinking. Celine stood in the doorway, watching him work through the problem like a chess master contemplating a board. What if we don't need to get to her? Damien said slowly. What if we make her come to us? How? We give her what she wants, evidence, a confession, proof that I'm everything she thinks I am. Victor's eyes narrowed. You want to walk into FBI headquarters and surrender? No. I want to set a trap so obvious she can't resist it, and when she shows up to spring it, we turn it on her. That's insane. You have a better idea? Victor was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled, a cold, dangerous thing. Actually, I do, but you're not going to like it. The plan was simple. Damien would leak information to one of his remaining contacts, someone he knew was compromised, someone who'd been acting suspicious for weeks. He'd tell them about a major shipment coming through the port. Weapons. Millions of dollars. Enough to put him away forever. The FBI would move on it immediately. But the shipment would be a decoy. And when Agent Navarro showed up to make the arrest, they'd have cameras recording everything. Proof that she'd been working with Constantine. Proof of her conspiracy. And then what? Celine asked. You give it to the media? The Justice Department? Who's going to believe you over an FBI agent? Nobody, Damien admitted. But they'll believe her partner. What partner? Constantine kept records. Everything. Every meeting. Every payment. Every promise Navarro made. Marcus told Victor where to find them before he died. We just need Navarro to confirm they're real. How do you get her to do that? We offer her a deal. She walks away. We disappear. Nobody gets arrested. Nobody dies. She gets what she wants, me gone, and we get to live. You think she'll take it? No, but when she refuses, we'll have her on tape admitting everything. And that's when we release it all, the recordings, the documents, everything. Celine stared at him. You're going to destroy her. She tried to destroy me first. And if it doesn't work, if she sees through the trap? Damien's expression was cold. Then we improvise. The shipment was scheduled for Friday night. Damien spent 3 days setting the stage, making calls, moving money, leaving a trail so obvious even a rookie agent could follow it. By Thursday evening, Victor confirmed the FBI had taken the bait. Navarro's putting together a task force, 20 agents. They're planning the raid for tomorrow at midnight. Will she be there? She wouldn't miss it. This is her career-making case. She'll want to be there for the arrest. Good. Damien looked at Celine. She was sitting on the couch, watching him with an expression he couldn't read. What? He asked. I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. Damien, this is a federal raid. There will be armed agents everywhere. If something goes wrong, I want to be there. I'm not sitting here waiting to find out if you're dead or in handcuffs. Celine, we've had this conversation. You don't get to shut me out. Damien closed his eyes. You're going to get yourself killed. Then we die together. Victor cleared his throat. Hate to interrupt, but she has a point. If things go sideways, having a doctor on site isn't the worst idea. See, Celine said. Victor agrees with me. Victor is an idiot. Victor is sitting right here, Victor muttered. Damien looked between them, outnumbered and outmaneuvered. Fine. But you stay in the car. You don't move unless I give the signal. And if I tell you to run, you run. No arguments. Deal. It wasn't a deal. They both knew it. But Damien was too tired to fight anymore. Friday night arrived cold and dark, the kind of night where the city felt like it was holding its breath. Celine rode with Damien and Victor to the port, a sprawling maze of shipping containers and cranes silhouetted against the skyline like metal giants. The decoy shipment was in container 447, carefully staged with just enough incriminating evidence to look legitimate, but not enough to actually convict anyone. Damien's men were positioned around the perimeter, invisible in the shadows, watching for the FBI's arrival. They waited. 11:30, 11:45, midnight. Then Victor's radio crackled. Convoy incoming, 8 vehicles, federal plates. Here we go, Damien muttered.
Celine's heart was hammering so hard she thought her ribs might crack. The FBI arrived like an invading army, agents in tactical gear pouring out of vehicles, surrounding the container, weapons drawn, barking orders. And in the center of it all, emerging from a black SUV, was Agent Rebecca Navarro. She was younger than Celine expected, late 30s maybe, sharp features, dark hair pulled back. She moved like someone used to being in charge. Damien watched through binoculars from their position 50 yards away, hidden behind a stack of containers. There she is. Now what? Celine asked. Now we wait for her to open the container and realize it's empty. It didn't take long. The agents cut through the lock, pulled open the heavy doors, and found exactly what Damien had left for them. Nothing. Just empty space and a single envelope taped to the wall. Navarro grabbed it, ripped it open, and read the contents. Even from a distance, Celine could see her face go white. "What did you write?" she whispered to Damien. "An invitation to meet me, alone, in the warehouse on the south end of the port. If she wants to finish this, she comes alone. Otherwise, every piece of evidence Constantine gave me about their partnership gets released to every media outlet in the country." "She's not going to come alone." "I know. So what's the real plan?" Damien smiled, and it was the coldest thing Celine had ever seen. "The real plan is already in motion." Navarro was shouting orders now, her voice carrying across the water. Half her team stayed with the container. The other half followed her toward the warehouse. Damien, Victor, and Celine moved through the shadows, staying ahead of them. The warehouse was massive, a relic from when the port was busier, now just a shell filled with rust and rats. Inside, Damien had set up a single folding chair in the center of the space, illuminated by a work light. He sat down, calm as anything, while Victor and Celine took positions in the shadows. "You're really just going to sit there?" Celine hissed. "She needs to think she's in control. She has 10 armed agents outside. And I have 20 men in position she doesn't know about. Trust me." Celine wanted to argue, but the warehouse doors burst open before she could. Navarro stepped inside, her weapon drawn, 5 agents behind her. She saw Damien and stopped. "You're either the bravest man I've ever met or the stupidest." "Little of both," Damien said calmly. "You think you can blackmail an FBI agent?" "I think I already have." Navarro's jaw tightened. "Whatever Constantine told you, he told me everything. How you approached him in prison. How you promised him immunity if he helped you take me down. How you fed him information about my operations so he could hit them." "That's a lie." "Is it? Because I have recordings, documents, emails, bank transfers, everything. Even if you did, nobody would believe you. You're a criminal. I'm a federal agent. Who do you think they'll side with?" "The side with proof." Damien pulled out his phone and played an audio file. Navarro's voice, clear as day, talking to Constantine. "We need to move faster. Volkov's too smart. If he figures out we're working together," Constantine's voice interrupting, "he won't. I know how he thinks. We'll destroy him piece by piece until there's nothing left." The recording ended. Navarro's face had gone pale. "That's fabricated." "No, it's not. And tomorrow morning, every news outlet in the country gets a copy. Unless you walk away right now." "Walk away?" "Disappear. Retire. I don't care. Just leave me alone. You get to keep your career. I get to keep my life. Everybody wins." Navarro stared at him. Then she started laughing. It was a terrible sound, bitter and broken. "You really think I'd make a deal with you? After everything you've done? After all the lives you've destroyed? I'm not the one who partnered with a child trafficker. I did what I had to do to take down a monster, and became one in the process." Navarro's hand tightened on her weapon. "You're under arrest, Volkov, for racketeering, conspiracy, money laundering, and about 20 other charges I'm going to enjoy reading to you." "No, I'm not." "You don't have a choice. Neither do you." Damien raised his hand. Lights flooded the warehouse from every direction. Spotlights mounted on containers outside, illuminating the entire space like daylight. And in that light, Navarro saw them. Damien's men, dozens of them, surrounding the building, weapons drawn. She spun around, her agents raising their guns, suddenly outnumbered 3-1. "You brought an army?" she said. "I brought insurance. This is a federal crime scene. You're assaulting law enforcement. I'm protecting myself. Big difference." My backup will be here in 5 minutes.
No, they won't. Victor made sure your radios are jammed, your phones too. Nobody's coming, Agent Navarro. It's just you and me and a decision you need to make. Navarro looked around at the men surrounding her, at the weapons pointed at her team, at the trap she'd walked right into. What decision? The same one I offered before. Walk away, or we all go down together. I'm not walking away. Then I release everything. And when the media digs into it, when they find out you partnered with Constantine, when they discover you helped him attack my operations and got people killed, your career is over. Maybe your freedom too. I was doing my job. You were breaking the law, the same laws you're supposed to enforce. Navarro's expression cracked. For the first time, Celine saw fear in her eyes. What do you want from me? I told you. Walk away. Admit this case is going nowhere. Let me disappear. You'll never hear from me again. And if I don't, then we both lose. But at least I'll take you down with me. The silence stretched like razor wire. Then Navarro lowered her weapon. Fine. You win. This time. I want it in writing. What? A signed statement saying you're dropping the case, saying there's insufficient evidence, saying I'm no longer a person of interest. That's not how this works. That's exactly how this works. You sign the paper, I don't release the recordings. Simple. Navarro looked like she wanted to shoot him, but after a long moment, she nodded. Victor stepped forward with a laptop and a portable printer. Navarro typed out the statement through gritted teeth, signed it, and shoved it at Damien. There, happy? Ecstatic. This isn't over, Volkov. Yes, it is. Navarro turned and walked toward the door, her agents following. When she reached the threshold, she looked back. You think you're invincible, but everyone falls eventually. And when you do, I'll be there to watch. I'll save you a seat. She left. The warehouse fell silent. Victor let out a breath. I can't believe that actually worked. It almost didn't, Damien said, standing slowly, his ribs protesting. She was 2 seconds away from calling my bluff. You were bluffing? About releasing the recordings? No. But about my men shooting federal agents? Absolutely. That would have been suicide. Celine emerged from the shadows, her legs shaking. So it's over? Really over? Damien looked at her. For now. What does that mean? It means Navarro might have backed down tonight, but she's not going to forget this. She'll wait. Regroup. Come at me from a different angle. People like her don't give up. So we're just waiting for the next attack? No, we're disappearing. Celine blinked. What? I can't stay in Chicago, not anymore. Too many enemies, too many people who want me dead or in prison. It's time to go. Go where? I don't know yet. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere nobody knows my name. And your empire? Victor can run it. He's earned it. Victor started to protest, but Damien cut him off. You've been loyal for 6 years. You've saved my life more times than I can count. The operation is yours. Do better with it than I did. Victor's throat worked. Boss, I'm not your boss anymore. I'm just a guy who's tired of looking over his shoulder. Damien turned to Celine. Come with me. Her heart stopped. What? Leave Chicago, leave the clinic, leave everything behind and come with me. We'll start over. New city, new names, new life. Damien, I know I'm asking for everything. I know it's not fair, but I can't do this without you. I don't want to do this without you. Celine stared at him, at this man who'd walked into her clinic months ago and turned her entire world upside down. This man who'd saved her life and nearly gotten her killed and made her fall in love with him despite every logical reason not to. Where would we go? Anywhere you want. And we'd just disappear? Pretend none of this happened? We'd try. What about Ivy? She's safe. Victor will make sure of it. She can rebuild her life without looking over her shoulder. Celine thought about her clinic, her patients, the life she'd spent years building. Then she thought about waking up every morning not knowing if today was the day someone came to kill her, about looking over her shoulder forever, about living in fear instead of living. Okay, she said. Okay? I'll come with you. Damien pulled her into his arms, and for the first time in weeks, she felt him relax. Thank you, he whispered. Don't thank me yet. You're stuck with me now. I can live with that.
They left the warehouse together, walking through the port toward the water where a boat was waiting. Behind them, Victor stood in the doorway, watching them disappear into the night. "Good luck, boss," he muttered. Then he pulled out his phone and started making calls. There was an empire to run, and ghosts to bury. On the boat, Celine stood at the railing, watching Chicago's skyline shrink in the distance. Damien came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Any regrets?" he asked. "Ask me in a year." "Fair enough." They stood there in silence, the city lights reflecting off the black water. And for the first time since this nightmare started, Celine felt something like peace. It wouldn't last. Peace never did. But for tonight, it was enough. The boat carried them south, down the river, toward the lake, toward whatever future they could build from the wreckage of everything they'd left behind. Somewhere in the darkness, a phone buzzed. Victor answered. "Yeah?" A woman's voice, cold, familiar. "Is it done?" "They're gone. Just like you wanted." "Good. Wire the money to the account we discussed. And Victor?" "Yeah?" "If I find out you warned him, you won't." The line went dead. Victor stood in the empty warehouse, staring at his phone, his jaw tight. Then he threw it into the water and walked away. Because some betrayals were necessary, and some ghosts never stayed buried, no matter how deep you tried to dig the grave. The boat cut through black water under a moonless sky, carrying Damien and Celine away from the only city either of them had ever called home. Celine stood at the railing, watching Chicago's lights fade into pinpricks on the horizon, and felt something hollow open up inside her chest. She'd spent her entire adult life in that city. Every scar on her hands came from patience in those streets. Every memory worth keeping lived in those neighborhoods. And now she was leaving it all behind for a man she'd known less than 3 months. A man who'd killed people. A man who'd built an empire on blood and fear. A man she loved so desperately, it terrified her. Damien came up behind her, his footsteps careful because his ribs were still healing, and wrapped a blanket around her shoulders. "Cold?" he asked. "No." "Then why are you shaking?" Celine didn't have an answer for that. Or maybe she had too many answers, and none of them made sense when she tried to put them into words. "I keep thinking about Marcus," she said finally. "About how he died apologizing for betraying you. About how he was just trying to save his mother and ended up getting himself killed." "Don't," Damien said quietly. "Don't what?" "Don't make him a martyr. He made his choices. So did I. So did you. We all knew the cost." "Did we?" "Because I don't remember signing up for any of this." "You didn't have to sign anything. You walked through the door the moment you decided not to leave." Celine turned to face him. In the darkness, with the wind pulling at his hair and shadows carving his face into something ancient and tired, he looked like a man who'd been running his entire life and had finally realized there was nowhere left to go. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "Becoming what you are?" "Every day." "Then why didn't you stop? Why didn't you walk away?" "Because once you start down this road, walking away doesn't mean freedom. It means death. The only way out is through. And we're through now?" "I don't know." The honesty in his voice made her chest ache. They stood there in silence while the boat carried them south, the engine thrumming beneath their feet like a heartbeat. Then Damien's phone buzzed. He pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and his entire body went rigid. "What?" Celine asked. "Text from Victor." "What does it say?" Damien's jaw clenched so hard she heard his teeth grind. "I'm sorry." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Celine's blood turned to ice. "What does that mean?" "It means we need to get off this boat. Now. Damien. Now." He grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the cabin where the captain was steering. They burst through the door. The captain turned, startled, his hand moving toward something under the control panel. Damien's gun was out before the man's fingers closed around whatever weapon he'd been reaching for. "Don't." The captain froze. "Who hired you?" Damien asked, his voice deadly calm. "I don't know what—" Damien fired. The bullet punched through the control panel, inches from the captain's hand, sparks erupting from shattered electronics. "I'll ask one more time. Who hired you?" The captain's face had gone white. "Victor. He said you'd pay me $50,000 to take you south. He didn't say anything about..." "About what?" "About them." "Who's them?" The captain pointed out the window. Celine looked. In the distance, barely visible against the dark water, 3 boats were closing in fast. No running lights, no identification, just speed and intent. How long until they reach us? Damien asked. 5 minutes, maybe less. Damien grabbed Celine's hand. Life jackets. Put one on. Now.
What are you We're jumping. Are you insane? The water's freezing. We'll die slower from hypothermia than we will from bullets. Move. He pulled her toward the storage locker, yanked out 2 life jackets, and started strapping one onto her with shaking hands. Behind them, the captain was frantically trying to restart the damaged controls. They're jamming the engine, he said. We're dead in the water. Damien finished with Celine's jacket and pulled on his own. How far to shore? Half a mile, maybe more. Can you swim that far? Damien asked Celine. I don't know. Yes, you do. Can you swim that far? Celine looked into his eyes and saw something she'd never seen before. Raw, undisguised terror. Not for himself, for her. Yes, she lied. Good. Stay close to me. Don't try to fight the current. Let the jacket do the work. And Celine? Yeah? Whatever happens, keep swimming. Don't wait for me. Just keep swimming until you reach land. I'm not leaving you. You will if I tell you to. Like hell. Damien almost smiled. Then the first bullets shattered the cabin windows. Glass exploded inward. The captain went down screaming, blood spraying from his shoulder. Damien shoved Celine toward the back door. Go! They ran onto the deck as the 3 boats pulled alongside, men with automatic weapons opening fire. The night erupted into chaos. Bullets tore through metal. Wood splintered. Somewhere behind them, the fuel tank ruptured and flames licked up the side of the cabin. Damien returned fire, his shots precise and controlled even as the boat lurched beneath them. One of the attackers went down, then another. But there were too many. Jump! Damien shouted. Celine didn't think. She just ran toward the railing and threw herself into the black water. The cold hit her like a sledgehammer to the chest, driving the air from her lungs in a silent scream. She went under. The life jacket dragged her back up, gasping, disoriented, the world spinning in circles of darkness and reflected firelight. Damien hit the water beside her a second later. Swim! He shouted over the gunfire. Toward the shore! Don't stop! She kicked hard, her legs already numb, her lungs burning. Behind them, the boat was a floating inferno, lighting up the water like a beacon. The 3 attack boats circled like sharks, their searchlights cutting through the darkness, hunting for survivors. Celine forced herself to swim. Her arms felt like lead. Her clothes dragged at her like hands pulling her down. The shore looked impossibly far away. A searchlight swept over her. Gunfire erupted. Bullets hit the water around her, close enough to feel the spray. Damien grabbed her, pulling her under, holding her there while the searchlight passed overhead. They surfaced together, coughing, gasping. Keep going, he said. Almost there. It was a lie. They weren't almost there. But she kept swimming anyway because the alternative was dying. Minutes stretched into hours, stretched into eternity. Celine's muscles screamed. Her lungs felt like they were full of broken glass. The cold had moved past pain into something worse, a numbness that made her want to stop moving, to just float, to let the water take her. Celine, Damien's voice cut through the fog in her brain. Stay with me. Don't you dare give up. I'm trying. Try harder. I can't. Yes, you can. The ferocity in his voice shocked her awake. She kicked harder, swam harder, kept moving even when every cell in her body begged her to stop. And then, impossibly, her foot touched something solid. Sand. She stumbled forward, half crawling, half swimming, until she collapsed on the shore. Damien dragged himself up beside her, both of them gasping like landed fish. Behind them, the attack boats were still circling the burning wreckage, their searchlights sweeping the water. They'll figure out we made it to shore, Damien said between breaths. We need to move. I can't move. You will, because I didn't drag you this far to watch you die on a beach. He pulled her to her feet. They stumbled inland, leaving wet footprints in the sand, their bodies shaking so hard their teeth rattled. The shore gave way to rocks, then vegetation, then a narrow road cutting through the darkness. Damien pulled out his phone. Waterlogged. Dead. Shit.
Now what? Celine asked. We walk until we find help. Or until they find us. That too. They walked. Celine lost track of time. Everything blurred into cold and pain and the rhythm of one foot in front of the other. At some point, headlights appeared in the distance. Damien pulled Celine off the road, into the trees, pressing her against a trunk while a car passed. It didn't slow down, didn't stop, just kept going, taillights disappearing into the darkness. We need to get somewhere warm, Damien said. You're hypothermic. So are you. I've been worse. When? Long story, come on. Another half-mile up the road, they found a gas station, one of those all-night places with fluorescent lights and bars on the windows. Damien walked in first, dripping water, looking like he'd crawled out of a grave. The clerk behind the counter took one look at him and reached for something under the register. Don't, Damien said, his voice flat. I just need to use your phone. We don't have a... Damien pulled out his wallet, somehow still intact despite the swim, and dropped $500 bills on the counter. Please. The clerk stared at the money, then he pushed a phone across the counter. Damien dialed from memory. It rang 3 times before someone picked up. This is Volkov. I need a pickup. Lake Michigan shoreline about 40 miles south of the city. There's a gas station. He squinted at the faded sign outside. Miller's Gas and Go. Send someone clean. No ties to the organization. And hurry. He hung up and looked at Celine. Help's coming. 30 minutes. Who did you call? A contact. Someone who owes me. Can we trust them? We're about to find out. The clerk was staring at them. You two okay? You want me to call an ambulance or something? No ambulances, Damien said, but I'll take whatever dry clothes you're selling and 2 cups of the worst coffee you've got. 20 minutes later, they were dressed in oversized tourist t-shirts that said I Heart Chicago and sweatpants that didn't fit, sitting in a corner booth with coffee that tasted like motor oil. Celine couldn't stop shaking, not from the cold anymore, from everything. Victor sold us out, she said quietly. Yes. Why? Money, fear, leverage. Does it matter? He made his choice. You trusted him. I was wrong too. Were you, or is this just what your world looks like? Everyone betraying everyone until nobody's left standing? Damien stared into his coffee cup like he was reading his future in the dregs. My father used to say something. He said trust was the most expensive thing you could buy and the easiest thing to lose. I never understood what he meant until I built my own empire. Every person you trust is a knife waiting to go into your back. You just have to decide which knives are worth the risk. And Victor wasn't? Apparently not. What about me? Damien looked up, and for the first time since they'd crawled out of the water, something almost like warmth flickered in his eyes. You're the only knife I don't mind holding. Celine wanted to laugh at how broken that sounded. Instead, she reached across the table and took his hand. We're going to survive this, she said. You don't know that. Neither do you, but we're going to try anyway. Headlights pulled into the parking lot. A nondescript sedan, no plates. Damien stood carefully, his hand moving toward the gun he'd somehow kept through everything. The driver got out, and Celine's heart stopped, because it was Ivy. She looked different, stronger. Her hair was shorter. She wore dark clothes and moved with confidence Celine had never seen in her before. She walked into the gas station like she owned it. You look like hell, Ivy said. What are you doing here? Damien asked. Victor called me. Said you needed a ride, said nobody else could be trusted. And you believed him? No, but I came anyway, because you saved my life. Both of you did. I figured it was time to return the favor. Celine stood, her legs still unsteady. Ivy, don't. I know what you're going to say, that it's too dangerous, that I should go back to hiding, that I don't owe you anything. Ivy's expression hardened. But I'm done hiding. I'm done being the victim. Victor told me what happened. He told me everything. Everything? Damien asked carefully. That he sold you out. That Agent Navarro paid him $500,000 to set you up. That the boat was supposed to take you straight into an ambush. Ivy's voice dropped. He told me because he couldn't live with it, because he wanted someone to know what he'd done before he disappeared. Where is he now? Gone. Left Chicago an hour ago. Said he was going somewhere even you couldn't find him. Damien's jaw worked. Smart. Maybe. Or maybe he's just another coward. Ivy pulled out a set of keys. My car's outside. I can take you wherever you need to go. Why? Celine asked. Why would you risk this? Ivy looked at her, and Celine saw something fierce burning in her eyes. Because for 3 years I let Preston hurt me. I told myself I deserved it. That if I was just better, quieter, more perfect, he'd stop. And then you walked into my life and showed me something I'd forgotten. What's that? That sometimes the only way to survive is to fight back. They drove north in silence, away from Chicago, away from the life they'd known. Ivy didn't ask where they were going. Celine didn't know anyway. Somewhere around dawn, as the sun started bleeding pink across the horizon, Damien's borrowed phone rang. He answered. Yeah? A woman's voice. Agent Navarro. Even through the phone, Celine could hear the ice in her tone. You're harder to kill than I expected, Volkov. Thanks. I've been practicing. This isn't over. Yeah, it is. I kept my end of the deal. I disappeared. That's what you wanted? I wanted you in prison. Or dead. Disappearing wasn't part of the agreement. Then you should have been more specific in your written statement, which, by the way, I still have copies of, along with all of Constantine's recordings. You come after me again, and they go public. We clear? Navarro was quiet for a long moment. How did you survive the boat? I've survived worse. Victor said, Victor's a liar. He always has been. I just took too long to see it. He gave you up for $500,000. That's loyalty in your world, isn't it? Everyone has a price. Most people do, but not everyone. Damien looked at Celine as he said it. You think love makes you invincible? Navarro asked. You think that doctor you're dragging through hell with you is going to save you? No, I think she already has. You're delusional. Maybe. But I'm alive. And I'm free. And you're stuck in Chicago explaining to your superiors why your star witness is dead and your case against me fell apart. So tell me, Agent Navarro, who really won here? Silence. Then the line went dead. Damien tossed the phone out the window. Was that smart? Celine asked. Probably not, but it felt good. Ivy glanced at them in the rearview mirror. So where are we going? Somewhere small, Damien said. Somewhere nobody knows us. Somewhere we can breathe. That's not a place. That's a fantasy. Then let's find out if fantasies can exist. They drove for 2 more hours, finally stopping in a town so small it barely had a name, just a cluster of buildings off the highway surrounded by farmland that stretched to the horizon. Ivy pulled into a motel parking lot. This work? She asked. Damien looked at the peeling paint and the flickering neon sign and the parking lot full of trucks. It's perfect. They rented 2 rooms with cash and collapsed into sleep that felt more like dying. When Celine woke up, it was late afternoon and Damien was sitting by the window, staring out at nothing. Can't sleep? She asked. Haven't been able to sleep properly in years. She crossed the room and sat beside him. What happens now? Now we figure out how to live like normal people. You think that's possible? No, but I'm willing to try. What about your empire? Everything you built? Victor can have it, or someone else will take it. Empires fall. That's what they do. I spent 20 years building mine. Maybe it's time to spend the next 20 building something else. Like what? I don't know. Something smaller. Something that doesn't require armed guards and encrypted phones. Something legal? Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Celine smiled despite everything. You're going to be terrible at being normal. Probably. But I'll have you to keep me honest. Is that what I am now, your moral compass? You're the only compass I've got. There was a knock at the door. Both of them froze. Damien's hand moved toward the gun he'd placed on the nightstand. It's me, Ivy called through the door. I brought food. Celine let her in. Ivy had changed into jeans and a flannel shirt. She must have bought somewhere, looking more like a local than someone who'd escaped Chicago's underworld 12 hours ago. She set down bags of fast food on the table. Figured you were hungry. You didn't have to do this, Celine said. I know, but I wanted to. Ivy sat down on the bed. I've been thinking about what I'm going to do next, where I'm going to go. And, Damien asked, Law school. Like I told you before, I want to help people like me, women who are trapped, who don't know how to get out. I want to be the person who shows them the door.
That's brave, Celine said.
No. What you did was brave. You walked into hell for someone you barely knew. I'm just trying to do something useful with the second chance you gave me.
Where will you go?
California, maybe. Somewhere far from Preston, far from Chicago. Somewhere I can start over without looking over my shoulder every 5 seconds. You deserve that, Damien said quietly. Ivy looked at him. So do you. Both of you. They ate in silence, greasy burgers and fries that tasted better than anything Celine had eaten in weeks. After, Ivy stood to leave. I'm heading out in the morning, driving west. If you need anything before then, we'll be okay, Celine said. Ivy paused at the door. Thank you for everything. For seeing me when I was invisible, for fighting when I couldn't, for reminding me I was worth saving. You always were, Celine said. You just needed someone to believe it first. Ivy nodded, her eyes bright. Then she left. That night, Celine and Damien lay in the cheap motel bed listening to trucks rumble past on the highway. Do you think we'll make it? Celine asked quietly. I don't know. That's not reassuring. I know, but it's honest. She turned to face him in the darkness. I need you to promise me something. What? Promise me you won't become him, won't become Constantine, won't let this life turn you into something hollow. I can't promise that. I don't know what I'll become. Then promise me you'll try. Damien was quiet for a long moment. I promise. Celine kissed him, soft and slow, tasting salt and exhaustion and something like hope. That'll have to be enough, she whispered. They fell asleep tangled together, two broken people trying to figure out how to be whole. 3 months later, Celine opened a small clinic in a town 2 states away from Chicago. It wasn't much, a converted storefront with secondhand equipment and a waiting room that fit 6 people if they squeezed. But it was hers. Damien helped her paint the walls and install the lights and build shelves for medical supplies. He was terrible at all of it, but he showed up every day anyway. Celine's first patient was a construction worker with a gash on his forearm. She stitched him up while Damien watched from the corner, and when the man left, she turned to find Damien smiling. What? She asked. Nothing, just, you look happy. I am happy. Even though we're living in a town with 1 stoplight and a diner that serves breakfast all day, especially because of that. You don't miss Chicago? Every day. But I don't miss what we were there. What we had to become to survive. Damien crossed the room and pulled her into his arms. I'm sorry. For dragging you into my world. For almost getting you killed. Stop. I made my choices. You didn't drag me anywhere I didn't choose to go. You shouldn't have had to choose. Maybe not, but I did. And I'd choose it again. Why? Because loving you is the first thing I've done in years that felt like living instead of just surviving. Damien kissed her forehead. I don't deserve you. Probably not, but you're stuck with me anyway. 6 months after that, on a cold November evening, Damien knelt in their tiny apartment above the clinic and pulled out a ring he'd bought with money from a legitimate job, consulting for a security firm, using all those years of criminal expertise for something legal. Marry me, he said. Not a question. A plea. Celine looked at the ring, at his face, at the life they'd built from nothing. Yes. They got married at the courthouse on a Tuesday afternoon with 2 witnesses they'd met at the diner and a judge who looked bored until Celine kissed Damien and the judge smiled despite himself. Life wasn't perfect. Damien still woke up screaming sometimes, trapped in nightmares where he was back in Chicago, back in the war, back in the darkness. Celine still flinched at loud noises, still checked the locks twice before bed, still saw Preston's face in every angry man who walked through her clinic door. But they survived, together. 1 year became 2, 2 became 3. The clinic grew. Celine hired a nurse, then another doctor. The town embraced them slowly, warily, but eventually with something like acceptance. Damien started teaching self-defense classes at the community center, teaching women like Ivy how to fight back, how to escape, how to survive. He was good at it, better than he'd been at crime. On their 3rd anniversary, Celine found out she was pregnant. She told Damien while they were washing dishes after dinner, the words tumbling out before she could second guess herself. I'm pregnant. Damien dropped the plate he was holding. It shattered on the floor. He just stared at her. Say something, she whispered. Are you sure? 3 tests, all positive. We're having a baby. We're having a baby. Damien pulled her into his arms so tightly she could barely breathe. I don't know how to be a father. Neither of us knows how to be parents. We'll figure it out. What if I'm terrible at it? Then you'll be terrible at it together with me. Damien laughed, and it sounded like something breaking open inside him. A baby. A baby. They stood there in the kitchen with broken porcelain at their feet and the future stretching ahead like an unwritten story. Celine's daughter was born on a spring morning when the world smelled like rain and new grass. They named her Elena, after Damien's mother, the woman who'd died trying to protect him from his father, the woman who'd taught him that love was worth fighting for, even when the fight looked hopeless. Damien held his daughter for the first time with shaking hands, staring down at her tiny face like he was seeing a miracle. She's perfect, he whispered. She's ours, Celine corrected. Same thing. Celine watched him rock their daughter gently and saw something she'd never thought possible. Peace. Real peace. Not the absence of danger, but the presence of something worth protecting. 5 years after they'd fled Chicago, Celine's phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Hello? Dr. Mercer? A woman's voice. Familiar. This is she. It's Ivy. Ivy Holloway. Celine's heart jumped. Ivy, how did you... I'm a lawyer now. Turns out I'm pretty good at finding people. I hope it's okay that I called. I wanted you to know. Preston died. Heart attack. 3 months ago. He's gone. Celine sank into a chair. Are you okay? I'm better than okay. I'm free. Really free. Not just legally. In here. Ivy's voice cracked slightly. I wanted to thank you for showing me I could be more than what he made me. You always were more, Ivy. You just needed to remember. I know that now. I help other women remember it too. I work with domestic violence survivors, pro bono cases mostly. Nothing glamorous, but it's everything. I'm proud of you. I learned from the best. Ivy paused. How are you? And Damien? We're good, really good. We have a daughter now. Elena, she's 5. A daughter? That's beautiful. Tell Damien. Tell him I said congratulations. And thank you for everything. I will. Take care, Dr. Mercer. You too, Ivy. The line went dead. Celine sat there for a long time, thinking about the woman who'd stumbled into her clinic bleeding and terrified, and the woman she'd become. Sometimes people survived. Sometimes they even thrived. That evening, Selena told Damien about the call while Elena played in the living room, building towers out of blocks and knocking them down with delighted shrieks. She made it, Damien said quietly. We all did. Against some pretty terrible odds. The best stories always do. Damien looked at her. Is that what this is? A story? What else would you call it? A miracle. A disaster. A second chance we didn't deserve. Maybe all of those things. Elena toddled over, holding up a block. Daddy, help! Damien scooped her up, settling her on his lap, helping her stack blocks into increasingly precarious towers. Celine watched them and felt something warm bloom in her chest. This was what winning looked like. Not the absence of scars, but the presence of healing. Not the erasure of the past, but the courage to build a future despite it. That night, after Elena was asleep, Damien and Celine sat on their porch watching fireflies dance in the darkness. Do you ever think about going back, Celine asked, to Chicago? Yeah. Sometimes, but not to stay. Maybe just to visit. See what's left. Say goodbye properly. Would it change anything? No, but it might help me stop looking over my shoulder. You still do that? Every day. Old habits. Do they ever die? I don't know. Ask me in another 5 years. Celine leaned against him, feeling his heartbeat steady and strong beneath her ear. I love you, she said. I know. That's not the response you're supposed to give.
What am I supposed to say? I love you too. Damien smiled in the darkness. I love you too. And somewhere far away, in a city that had forgotten their names, the empire Damien Volkov had built continued to crumble. Victor disappeared, never to be heard from again.
Agent Navarro got promoted, then got caught in a corruption scandal and resigned in disgrace. The warehouses burned, the money dried up, the network collapsed. Everything Damien had spent 20 years building turned to ash and memory. But in a small town where nobody knew who he used to be, Damien Volkov lived. Really lived. Not as a king, not as a monster, just as a man, a husband, a father. Someone who'd learned the hard way that the things worth having were never the things you could take by force. They were the things you had to earn. One choice at a time, one day at a time, one breath at a time. And on quiet evenings when the world felt heavy, when the nightmares came back, when the weight of everything he'd done threatened to pull him under, Damien would walk into his daughter's room and watch her sleep. This tiny person who existed because he'd chosen to stop running. Because Celine had chosen to run with him. Because sometimes the only way to survive the darkness was to create your own light. And that in the end was enough. Not perfect, not pain-free, but enough. Years later, when Elena was old enough to ask questions, she would look at her father and say, "Tell me a story." And Damien would smile, that rare, genuine smile that only appeared around his family, and say, "Once upon a time, there was a man who thought he was a monster."
Was he? Elena would ask. Maybe, for a while, but then he met a woman who was braver than she knew, and she showed him something he'd forgotten. What's that? That monsters are just people who've forgotten how to be human, and that the way back isn't through power or fear or control, it's through love, even when love is terrifying, even when it costs everything, especially then. Did they live happily ever after? Damien would look at Celine across the room, and she would look back, and something would pass between them that didn't need words. They lived, he would say, and that was better than any fairy tale. Because in the end, this wasn't a story about redemption. It was a story about survival, about two people who'd been broken by the world and found each other in the wreckage, about choosing to build something new instead of mourning what was lost, about learning that sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't fighting, it's walking away from the fight entirely, and starting over, again, and again, and again, until one day you wake up and realize you're not just surviving anymore, you're living. And that's the only victory that ever really mattered.